Greetings. Welcome
Hello,
to Conversations with Nicole and
the Black Mental Wellness Lounge doing
I am
a
yes,
live.
yes, we live. I'm Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole, and I'm collabing with Mr. Brandon J. Johnson.
Absolutely, of the Black Mental Wellness Lounge. And I'm so excited to be doing this with you, Nicole, again. Like, I was on Nicole's show. How long ago was that at
I
this
think it
point?
was February, maybe. I think.
Was it? That's
Yeah.
crazy. It feels
I
like we
know.
didn't know each other for years at this point.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we collaborated then to have Brandon on the show. Actually, I think you were on another time as well. But we just have stayed connected and been resources for one another. And so Brandon has well, first of all, September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and this week is Black Youth Suicide Prevention Week.
Yes,
Yes.
that is created from the Black Mental Wellness Lounge.
Mhm.
Uh, he um, really saw a need to like highlight us and talk about this issue as it pertains to what's happening in our community. And so I was like, I'm not seeing enough of us. And so at that point I was like, let's build and create something. And this is year two. So last year was just infographics, and this year we're doing lives. I'm connecting with you, like we're doing all this different stuff this year. So I'm
Indeed.
excited.
Indeed. Yes. And so I'm glad to have you here, glad to be collaborating. And we have some great practitioners on as our guests today. So excited and delighted to have them and look forward to engaging with people, with the viewers. So you all please like, share, tell folks they need to be on here. We are talking Black youth suicide prevention. And we want parents, we want students, we want counselors, we want teachers, we want any and everybody dealing with Black youth to be on this live. So tag a friend, like, share, let them know they need to be on here with us. So,
Yeah,
we are engaging. We want to hear your comments and questions and that sort of thing. So definitely tell them to come on in.
yeah, absolutely. This is definitely something that is a growing issue. Like we've seen trends, and today the first infographic that I dropped today was around the data around
Mhm.
Black suicide. Like what's happening? Like what do we know? And what we know is that this trend has been a significant issue for a while. I mean, and I can go into all the reasons as to why the field wasn't focused on it, but to see, structural systemic racism kind of explains that whole thing. But this wasn't, seen as an issue in our community, and it's taken so many people who I look up to, admire in this space, who've been paving the way on this topic for decades, right?
Right.
Like before I'd even thought about this as a field, before many of us had understood it was a problem, like they were pioneers working on this, and I want to salute them, give them their flowers. And
Absolutely.
it's brought us to this point now where we're seeing these trends getting significantly worse, where we're seeing it with CDC data. Black adolescents between the ages of 13 and 17 have the highest rate of self-reported suicide attempts.
Mhm.
We're seeing deaths of Black youth between the ages of 5 and 12, double in like a less than 20-year span, right? And as we're seeing this, and we're seeing our kids being exposed to more racial trauma and COVID and other things, we want to get as much out about this topic as possible. This is an
Right.
awareness campaign. We're trying to throw resources all these things together so we can really get people talking about it.
Yes, 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 yes. And just for the record, talking about it does not plant the seed as it relates to it. So
Nicole,
please
say
don't.
it again. Say it again. Say it again.
Talking about suicide ideations does not plant the seed and is not a cause of people dying by suicide. I actually, like, firsthand had a situation over the weekend. I was at FAMU's campus at an event, a mental health event at that, and was talking to some of the athletes, student athletes. And as I began to share some of the resources that were available, one of the students raised his hand and was like, "I need counseling," before I can even really get the information out. And so I kept my eye on him throughout the program, and afterwards asked him to come talk to me. I
Mm-hmm.
actually had a clinician there as well to speak to. And so I asked the young man his name and what, if everything was okay. And he was like, "No, it's not okay."
Mm-hmm.
And he just was real vague, but something was troubling him. He felt like he had to kind of take it on himself. And so I had the counselor, a black male counselor, talk to him. And so
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, I talked to the counselor, and I said, "Well, did he tell you kind of what was going on?" He was like, "No, he didn't. He didn't tell me." But I asked him if he, had considered suicide, and he honestly said yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he the counselor was like, "Well, I couldn't make him talk if he didn't want to talk," but we talked to the coach, so hopefully the coach can intervene because he has a relationship, of course, with the student.
Right.
But yeah, you just never know. But I could just sense that something wasn't quite right with them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and we all carry a lot, right? So like we all carry a lot as adults and feel like, we should, we know the, strong black woman trope and, black men have to feel invincible because of everything else that we have going on. And
Mhm.
so as a part of that, our young people are feeling it too, right? Like they're feeling these weights, like they're understanding these things as well. And so we want to connect our young people to as many resources as possible, get some good information out as well. And so uh, follow for the rest of the week. Would love to interact with folks and continue to get these infographics out for sure.
For sure, for sure. All right, you ready to bring on our first guest?
Yeah, like as we're talking about this, I would love to bring on I can't say colleague. That's my sister. That's my friend, my
Okay.
sister in this space. And this is Janelle Cubbage. I'll let her introduce herself, but she's a therapist and she's a dear, dear friend of mine in this space. And yeah, also giving you your flowers today and all the work that you do for our community, for our people. Definitely just wanted to get that out on the live publicly and it's being recorded. So you got it. I can never take it back.
Well, the compliments and the gratitude and acknowledgement are never short with you, Brandon. So I do appreciate all the encouragement that you give because this is hard work that we do. Um, and yeah, colleague doesn't quite capture how our relationship has evolved over the years. So um, really excited to be here and have this conversation
Yeah.
and see some familiar faces. And
Yeah,
Max
Dr.
is
Terry.
joining also. Um,
Hey,
so I'm glad that he's not barking. So we'll let him sit up
Cool.
we're good with pets.
Yes, we are.
Cool,
All
cool,
right.
cool.
So tell us a little bit about you, Janelle.
Sure. So I'm trained as a clinical mental health counselor. So I do therapy part time in private practice. I own my own private practice,
Okay.
which turned a year old in July. So I'm really
Congratulations.
excited about that. Thank you. To be able to start a practice where I really had agency over the policies, the practices, and to make sure that that reflected my values and the communities that I want to serve. So I primarily work with Black women. I specialize in treating trauma. That's my jam. And I also work in the public health space in suicide prevention. So I started suicide prevention work in 2015, working with the Army National Guard, managing a suicide prevention program for them. And then after that, for 4 years, I was the director of suicide prevention for the Maryland Department of Health. And I chaired the State Commission on Suicide Prevention. And now I work at Johns Hopkins, more broadly in the gun violence prevention space, but with a focus on suicide.
Awesome. Wow. What a body of work.
Yeah, she does it all. And she's from Baltimore as well. So we gotta give those.
Nice.
Yeah, so you do a ton, you're engaged in a ton. And, as we've done this work, as we've, been connecting people and, talking about this issue, there's always this conversation around therapy, right? As a support for our young people and navigating this space. One of the things I get from people a lot is that navigating the mental health services space is tiring, it's taxing, it's a lot, right? So for parents on like listening tonight, like, and they want to get into like, I want to find a therapist for my child, like, what advice do you have for them, like in getting started?
First, I just want to validate that it can be a really frustrating process. And I know that a lot of times when people are seeking therapy, that it's at a time where they've reached their limit, they feel like they can't cope anymore. And so you're already working with limited resources and now dealing with a very convoluted and frustrating system. So I just want to name that. So there are a few different ways that you can look for therapists. So one being if you have an online account with your insurance provider, or if you call their customer service number on the back of your insurance card. They have databases of different therapists who accept your insurance. So that's one way to go through and try to find someone who accepts your insurance. Another way would be to use a database website where therapists sign up to advertise their services. So there are different websites like Psychology Today, Therapy Den, Inclusive Therapist, Therapy for Black Girls, Therapy for Black Men. There are a host of different websites that you can search on, and many of them allow you to narrow down and filter your search based on the insurance that they accept, whether or not they have a sliding scale fee if you don't have insurance or if you're underinsured. And if that's the case, Open Path Collective is another really good option where therapists have signed up to provide low-cost session services. I think it's between $30 or $60 a session for people who don't have insurance or who have high deductibles. So a lot of these search engines allow you to filter by what insurance they accept, the types of issues they treat, the therapy that they do. Some of them even have different identity categories. So you can search for people who work with people who share in identity or multiple identities with you. And some of them allow you to filter by different identities that the therapist has. So if you're specifically looking for a Black therapist or a therapist who's in the LGBTQ community, some of these search engines allow you to do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I
And
also
so,
think Sorry, this just came to mind, but if you're already working with a provider, if you're working with a psychiatrist or a primary care provider or some other health professional, you can ask them for referrals. So if they have any connections with providers in the community that they would refer you to, and also just word of mouth. So if you have friends who are also going to therapy, which that can get a little um, tricky navigating, right? No, whether or not you want to go to the same therapist as a friend, but maybe their therapist works in a group practice and there's another therapist that you could work with there. That could be another way to try to find some other providers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a really good way to get people into it. And I think those databases, they help a lot, right? Like you're able to kind of find some, like you said, like those identities that kind of would make therapy a better experience for you.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. So, Janelle, what are some of, I know you talked about some of the ways to kind of connect with some of the resources that are available, but if there seems to be a lack of resources, what would you suggest for parents or people that, that deal with Black youth?
Mhm. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean with lack of resources?
Maybe not a counselor in their area, or maybe they don't have insurance, and they're challenged with the expense of it,
Mhm.
of counseling. So, any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I think, if there's not a therapist in your area, especially if you're looking for a Black therapist or a therapist with a racially minoritized identity, it will likely be challenging to find someone
Hmm.
and to get in with them quickly. All of my colleagues who are also a Black therapist have wait lists. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a need, and we are serving our community, but there's just not enough of us to go around,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So the cool thing about the pandemic, that sounded really not great. Thing of the pandemic is that it really expanded telehealth services. So um, with the pandemic, almost all mental health services for therapy went virtual. So that really helped with accessibility for folks. So if there's not someone in your immediate area, you can broaden your search to your state, um,
Mm.
and see if there might be a provider within your state who you wouldn't be able to drive to. It just wouldn't be feasible. But if they're offering telehealth services, then um, they could still be able to work with and treat you. There are some exciting compacts that are happening, interstate compacts that are happening with psychologists and also counselors.
Mm.
This is going to take time to be set in place and start working and functioning. However, um, counselors finally reached the number of states needed for their interstate compact, where states that participate in this compact will allow clinicians who are licensed in one of these states to practice in any of the other states,
Mm.
participating in the compact without acquiring an additional license.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's on the horizon again. We just got the number of states this year for this to be able to set it in motion. So there's the process of getting this started up. However, it's something on the horizon that's really exciting and finally catching our field up to the realities of telehealth and the need in all of these states for diverse providers, providers with different specialties. So it's really going to help with access. Um, as far as the financial aspect, many therapists offer sliding scale spots or pro bono spots, in addition to their therapy appointment slots where they might accept insurance. So many therapists do want to give back to their community, and that's one way that they're able to do so, by offering a sliding scale fee based on what your income is, or even offering pro bono services. So if you're reaching out to someone, some therapists advertise this on their profiles on those various websites we talked about, or on their own website. If it's not listed there, I would still ask. You never know. And it doesn't hurt to ask. And here in Maryland, so you would have to check and see if this is true of your state as well. But we have something called the Pro Bono Counseling Project, where therapists can sign up to offer pro bono counseling, and people who are in need of pro bono counseling can go through this service to be matched with a therapist who has agreed to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. They're an amazing organization. Their CEO is a friend of mine. Their director is a friend of mine. So yes, I definitely can definitely second that. It's a great resource.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to see about us getting that in Florida.
Yeah, and I think the Boris Henson Foundation also offers vouchers for therapies for Black people. So if you go on, I know that they'll pay for a certain number of sessions if you apply and get the voucher, and they'll pay your provider directly. So
wow.
There are some different options out there.
And Acoma is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Acoma does free 5 sessions of therapy for BIPOC young people between shout out to the director, Dr. Alfie Breland-Noble, so I should know the age range. But definitely teenagers to young adults. You have to be a BIPOC individual. 5 free sessions of therapy through the Acoma Project, and that's AAKOMA. So definitely want to shout them out also.
Okay, I'm taking notes, y'all.
So Janel, I'll get you out of here with this last question. So parents like want to get my child in. I figured out a way to get them in. How do I pick a therapist? Like, how do I know that this therapist is going to be good with my kid? Because we're protective over our babies. Like, is there anything that I can think about beforehand? Anything I can look up? Anything I can ask? Is there anything that I should consider in doing that part?
Well, I think as a parent, maybe helping narrow down some of those choices for your kid could be helpful. So what insurance that you have, you likely know what your child is going to therapy for. So you can kind of filter down the results based on some of those factors. And then I would recommend, honestly, depending on their age and if it's developmentally appropriate, letting the child read through the profiles, look at the pictures of the person so that they can kind of get a feel, because honestly, it's your kid who's going to be working with the therapist. So it's really important that they're able to build that relationship with their therapist. That's the most important variable for the success of therapy, is the therapeutic relationship. So if they're old enough to be able to do that, I trust that they have insight on who they're going to vibe with and who they're not going to. So let them have that choice. I think that can be really empowering and a great way to start off the therapy process. Or if they're a little bit younger, maybe sitting with them and talking through the different options with them and kind of coming up with a decision together. It may be trial and error. So you may go for an initial appointment with someone and realize they're great and you want to continue working with them. And that's grand slam, great, love that for you. Or you may get there and realize that something's off. We're not vibing like I need us to vibe. and you may have to try another therapist, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that therapy was a failure. You just kind of got to shop around for someone who's going to be the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important for parents to know that because a therapist won't divulge information from a session to you, doesn't mean that they're not a good therapist. It means they're protecting your kids' confidentiality.
Right.
Now, if there are safety concerns or things of that nature that rise to the level of breaking confidentiality, then yes, they would share those things with you. But it's also important to really respect your kids' privacy and confidentiality about what they're working through in therapy. And to me, that's a good hallmark of a good therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, narrowing it down by what you need treated, if there's a specific treatment approach that you're looking for, narrowing it down by that, maybe also by identity, if that's really important for you. And also, I think just kind of asking some questions like, what's your experience working with Black youth? And what work have you done on anti-racism? And kind of exploring some of those things, because the mental health field is not without impact from systemic and institutional racism. So if you're unable to find a Black provider, I think those can be really important and helpful questions to ask to understand if someone might be a good fit or not.
No, that's awesome.
No, really great advice. Really great advice. So thank you for sharing that. Just really quick, Michael Love, who actually is my guest on Wednesday's show, said that Governor DeSantis of Florida signed a bill into law making Florida the 8th state to enact the interstate counseling compact. So didn't know that, but that's a great thing.
Yeah. So I know there's at least 15 now. So Florida was the 8th, and then there was just an onslaught of additional states. And you can look that up on the National Mental Health Counselor Association website.
Mm-hmm.
They have all of the states listed who are currently participating. And if your state's not listed, you can get involved in some advocacy to help push for that to happen in your state.
Absolutely. Well, that, again, great information, Janel. We really appreciate you sharing all of what you shared. How can folks connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Janel Cubbage, and I'm on TikTok and Instagram at The Tattooed Counselor. So you can reach out to me there. I have a link tree in my bio. So yeah, connect with me there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well,
Awesome.
thank you so much for all of the great information that you have shared today. And I'm definitely going to look into some of the stuff that you have mentioned and share that with the folks here in Florida. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me and Rex.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Janel.
All right. See ya. All
Cool.
right. Wow. Man,
Yes.
she's a wealth of information. My goodness.
Always. Like, just, it's always good to figure out different ways to like navigate that space, because people get tired and they stop and they're like, it's not worth it. I'm not going to find anybody, like, I'm out. So as much as we can empower people with the tools to keep going, that's the most important piece. Okay, so we got two other special guests that we want to bring up and have some conversation with.
Indeed. Okay, so
Kiesha, Archie, let's bring them both.
All right. So Miss Kiesha Jackson.
Kiesha. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And Mr. Archie Green.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
How you all doing?
Pretty good.
Doing good.
Good.
This Monday evening.
Indeed. So Kiesha, tell us about yourself.
Yes, I am Kiesha Jackson. I'm the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Caleb's Kids. Caleb's Kids, we focus on suicide prevention through tackling it through mental health education and mental health literacy. I started Caleb's Kids back in 2016 after, unfortunately, losing my younger brother Caleb to suicide. So, as a suicide loss survivor, I created Caleb's Kids really just to show young people that there are options, teach young people how to recognize when they are in distress, but then also teach young people how to cope. What are coping skills? What do they look like? In addition to my work with Caleb's Kids, I also am a licensed counselor and I focus on providing therapy with young people as well as millennial age women.
Okay. Where are you located, Kiesha?
I am Detroit, the D.
All right. Very good. Thank you. All right. Archie?
Hello, everyone. So I am the founder and CEO of Pilgrim Layers Back, which is a 501c3 based in Cleveland, Ohio, with the mission of educating, equipping, empowering Black men and boys
So
with
I'm
the
gonna slow you
tools.
down. I'm gonna slow you down. What did you say? Peel them
Pilgrim Layers
layers.
Back.
Peel them layers back. Okay, you gotta
Pilgrim
tell us.
Layers Back.
You gotta tell us about this name now.
Pilgrim Layers Back. So the name actually originated from a song that I wrote. So I'm also a hip hop artist, and I wrote a song called Layers back in 2016, and the hook had that phrase "Peel them layers back" in
Okay.
it. And so I was inspired by the response because when the song came out, song talking about my experience with depression. I live with depression and anxiety, and going to therapy, it went viral and really inspired me to start my organization focused on promoting mental health awareness for the Black and Brown community. And then in 2020, we became a 501c3 and refined our mission to focus specifically on empowering Black men and boys, because that's who I self-identify as. And in a lot of ways, we are the hardest eggshells to crack. So we're using hip hop to do that. And so we've been doing it now for 6 years.
Wow. Wow.
That
Wow.
is awesome.
Amazing stories, both of you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, I don't know. How do we want to get started with these questions?
Yeah. So first, I had to switch into my Caleb's Kids scenario.
Oh, you represent.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
That was the quick wardrobe change. I love it's the Kayla's Kids. Again, supported both of your amazing organizations. And so I think one of the things that you all talk about is that you guys are in the trenches, right? Like you all are like working with our kids, like working with our babies, like really trying to like connect with them on a level where they feel comfortable and open to talking about some heavy stuff, right? And so like we've gone through COVID, we've gone through a lot. Like what have you been hearing from the young people that you serve, that you've dedicated your careers to? Like what are you hearing from them about what's some of the stuff that's impacting them?
Yeah, well, what I've been hearing about it, and our young people are just so resilient. They are so in touch with themselves as far as, hey, there is something going on with me. We were actually working with some elementary school students today, and them able to identify by name them feeling anxious, them able to identify that, hey, well, when I'm feeling this way, this makes my stomach hurt or this makes my head hurt. So when I'm talking to young people, what I am seeing from them, I have a lot of young people who are experiencing that anxiousness, that worry, that fear, that sadness. So a lot of our young people are experiencing those things specifically.
All right. And what about you, Archie?
I mean, what I would add is, I've worked with kids as young as 4 years old, and I've worked with kids as old as 17, 18. And for some of the younger students that I've worked with in the past, it's social anxiety, trying to be perfect. I worked with a class, and I found out from the educators that they were like, some of them would write their name because they learn in cursive. So they learn how to write in cursive, write their names. And some of them would spend 5-10 minutes trying to write their name perfect so they wouldn't be judged by their friends. So dealing with that type of social anxiety. And then with some of the older students, the older young males that I've worked with, a lot of them are dealing with, being judged by teachers, being, white supremacy, being judged by administrators, principals, being misunderstood by their parents. Some of them, we had one student in one of our programs who was couch surfing, so dealing with homelessness. So they're dealing with a lot when at the end of the day, it's like all they should be focused on is school. So when you think about, and then plus again, you scroll through social media, you're dealing with the inferiority complex that continues to perpetuate and make us as Black men look inferior, look like we are worth less instead of worth more. So there's a lot they're bombarded with on a daily basis.
Indeed. So, what are some of the ways that you all assist your young people that are going through the things that you've talked about?
Well, one of the things that we work with them on is teaching them those coping skills, but helping them identify the things that they're already doing that are really coping skills. So, is it listening to the music? Is it practicing some guided breathing or deliberate breathing? Is it doing some art, doing some poetry? So, helping them to identify the things that they're already doing that they connect with, but then introducing them to new stuff that they may not have even thought about doing that they can find joy in, and really having like that cultural lens and that cultural aspect to it, because self-care, coping, it looks different for all of us. And it's important that we have to find what works for us and continue to do that so that it becomes part of our normal routine, and so that we are able to easily dip into it when we truly need it, when we're in a mental health crisis.
Gotcha.
And I would say it's pretty similar for PDLB. We actually have a program called the Cope Dealer Program, COPE, the Cope Dealer Program, that we work with youth. And over the course of 10 weeks, they listen to music, they analyze the lyrics that are tied to mental health. And then each week we give them a new coping mechanism. So whether it's meditation, words of affirmation, playlisting. So just like Kiesha said, playlisting is one of the most powerful and underutilized coping mechanisms that there are. Like a lot of times when, someone might be angry or sad or want to punch a wall, it's like if you are able to turn on that song or that album that really speaks to how you feel, it's a good way to kind of express yourself without hurting yourself, right? And then there's other ways, I think, like Kiesha said, there's no one size fits all when it comes to coping mechanisms, whether it's cooking, going for a walk outside, reconnecting with friends. There's all kinds of ways. And so we introduce, in terms of with our programming at PDLB, we introduce something new while utilizing something familiar. So we use hip hop as a vehicle to make it cool to cope, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Absolutely. And again, you all are doing an amazing job in doing this. Like, you're hearing what our young people are going through. Y'all putting stuff in place. Y'all helping our young kids, and y'all hearing a lot of stuff probably about adults and about parents. How can we do better with our young people? Like, hearing what y'all hear from them, like, how can other adults, like, that are around kids, parents and other people, like, how can we do better with our kids, like in their mental health and their social emotional awareness?
One of the things that I always hear from parents is that if their child is struggling, they think that it is a reflection of their parenting, or think it is a reflection of them, that they're just not a good parent and they don't know how to raise children. So one is working with parents to really change that mindset, that no, like, just because your child is struggling or having these issues, it doesn't mean that it's a fault of your own. Now, there are situations where our young people are in very traumatic environments where, the household and their community and their environment is adding to that trauma and is creating that trauma and creating the concerns that they have. But that's not every situation. And even if it is those types of situations, the parents have to be open to learning and have to be open to hearing what others are telling them about their children, hearing what their children are telling themselves. Our kids are in school for the majority of the day. So when a teacher is saying, "Hey, Johnny has been sad for the last 6 days. Is everything okay?" The parent has to be open to accepting that and seeing if there truly is a concern.
That's
And I would
big.
add to that, as far as the educational piece that Kiesha spoke on. So I also work for NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we have programs called Family to Family, which is an educational program specifically for family members of those living with a mental illness. And we also have family support groups. So if there's a parent who doesn't totally understand or know what it's like to live with someone with a mental illness, these are some free resources that you can utilize to learn from others who are going through a similar situation. I know specifically for us in the Black community, we're visual learners in a lot of ways. And a lot of times we need to see and or hear from someone that looks like us about their experience. And so that's another thing I would add on is learning about it. Because even in my household, my wife, she's had to like kind of read a little bit about what it's like to be married with someone who lives with depression. It's a lifelong learning process.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back to which something you said, Kiesha, about the about parents, because it's tough being a parent, and it's tough to get feedback when you feel like you've done something incorrectly.
Mhm.
If you feel like this person's coming from my parenting, it's hard to even get through to the message they're trying to get to you, because all you hear is like, so I'm a bad parent. Like I just like, what did I do? But I think it's important, like what you said about taking a step back and saying like, hey, like what's happening, what's going on, and then following up with our kids to be like, hey, I heard this, like what's happening.
Absolutely. And one thing that I know, and being familiar with Archie's work as well, is we do a good job of helping to reframe what mental health looks like, but also how we discuss mental health and how we talk about mental health. So we're not talking in clinical terms when we're talking to parents, or even when we're talking to our young people. It's helping to connect that, oh, well, this person was sad and stuck in their room all day. Oh, well, that we know that that means that they may be struggling with some depression, but maybe saying the word depression to a parent may be too scary. So it's adjusting how we speak about mental health to ensure that we are reaching our community in the best way.
Yeah, no, that's good. I also was the question that came to mind in listening to you all talk was also, are there some things that you can do to assist parents in terms of things maybe that they should not do in dealing with their child that might be going through suicidal thoughts or ideations and that sort of thing. So are there some recommendations for parents in terms of things that they shouldn't be doing?
Absolutely. One of the biggest ones is not minimizing that child's experiences and that child's feelings. Quite oftentimes, parents feel that a child, you're only 10 years old. What do you mean you're feeling this way? Or you don't have the types of stressors that I have. So, how dare you feel depressed? Or how dare you feel suicidal? You don't have any bills to pay. So,
Mm,
again, not minimizing a child's feelings, a child's
mhm.
experience, because we all have a brain, and we all have to learn how to grow and function our brain. And
Yeah.
children truly are learning how to grow and function their brain, whether they put positive things in their brain or negative things in their brain. Everything is contributing to how the brain is functioning.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you
And
for that.
I would also add, I think the biggest takeaway when I work with youth of any age, specifically Black youth, is they want to feel seen and heard.
Mhm.
So when your child is coming to you and expressing themselves, saying, I'm going through this, first of all, you should applaud them for having the courage to share with you, because
Mhm.
that's an ideal situation, an ideal scenario. And I'm speaking, from my own lived experience as, having parents at home. I don't have any kids yet, hopefully soon. But at the same time, you know, one of the biggest things that I see whenever we work with kids is they feel like so validated for the first time because they're told no so much and told your feelings don't matter and
Yeah.
all of these type of things. And so I think one of the biggest things, to echo what Kiesha said, is, just validate them, make them feel seen, make them feel heard. You might not totally understand it. And then also don't blame yourself, because, the thing with depression, it can be set on by a traumatic occurrence. It could be set on by DNA or genetics. So it could be in your family and you didn't know it. There's all kinds of factors. So definitely don't blame yourself either.
No, great advice. Great advice.
Absolutely. So I would say, with everything that you all are doing and the things that you're working on, like, what's the biggest takeaway that you have in the work that you've done? Like, what's been the biggest thing that you've learned? What's been the one key thing that you're like, if I could put this and give it to everybody in the country, like everybody gets a pamphlet saying this thing, we're asking people to do this thing when it pertains to the mental health of our kids, like, what would it be? What would that message be?
That's Brandon. Like,
That's a fire question.
Brandon got y'all, huh? He got y'all with that.
I ain't gonna lie, I came on the top of my head just now too. I'm not even.
I guess the biggest thing for me is to always encourage people to have their toolkit, have their wellness toolkit. And it could literally be a box that someone has, or they have collected ideas of things that they like to do that helps to bring them out of that dark place, that helps to calm their anxieties if they're struggling with some worries or fears. Maybe there's some trinkets that they can put in that box. Maybe there's just different sayings that they can put in that box, but have a literal toolkit that you can go to when you're struggling. And that's something that you can depend on. Maybe you don't have someone to talk to, but you know that if I'm struggling, I have this go-to thing that I can do. And if this go-to thing doesn't work, then I have another thing in this box that I can do. So really preparing for potential distress, so that it becomes almost second nature when you do need to engage in some of those coping skills.
Oh, I love that.
And it's crazy that Kiesha said like a toolkit, because we actually make what we call the PDLB survival toolkit. And in this toolkit is a fuchsite stone, which is connected to the heart chakra, an incense, frankincense and myrrh, which helps with anxiety. There's a journal, there's a pen to write with, but just having a list of those coping mechanisms to go to when you're, like, for me, for instance, I still live with depression, even though I'm a mental health advocate and I talk about how to cope with depression. I still got to do these things myself. And so I have a listing of coping mechanisms that are part of my survival toolkit that I carry with me every day, whether it's taking breaks from social media, going on walks, listening to a really good playlist, cooking, anything that brings me that kind of joy. But also I have, like, as far as the playlisting, I have my like use in emergency situations playlist that kind of helps me when I know I'm entering a depressive state, that helps to get me out of that. And so I think, if we all had those go-to mechanisms to utilize, I think that would be an ideal place, a happy place for all of us.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's great. Really, really good. Both of you. I'm just kind of blown away by it all. Yeah, that's good stuff. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Like, having those things are critical. And so we also want to make sure that people who are watching and listening know about the 988 resource. And that is the new number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can call, you can also text. If you got young people who don't want to get on the phone and, don't want to jump on and have you overhear that conversation, or anything like that, they can text 988 also. Trained crisis counselors are available across the country to pick up the phone and to respond to the text. And so definitely want to make sure everybody has that resource.
Absolutely. So how can folks connect with you, Kiesha?
You can connect with me on Instagram or Twitter at Caleb's Kids, as well as Facebook as Caleb's Kids. So Instagram, Twitter, Caleb's Kids.
Okay, very good. And Archie?
You can connect with me. It's at the_cope_dealer. You can also connect with my organization at Peel Them Layers Back on Instagram and on Twitter.
All right, peel them layers back. I
It's all
transcribed
good. It's all good.
but we'll get it up right.
We feeling the
good.
layers. That's what's important.
I love it.
Yeah, I can't thank you two enough. I appreciate all the work that you do each and every day for our young people. Again, being in like doing that, I can always call it trench work because it's hard, it's difficult, it's challenging, it takes extra effort, it's relationship building. But you all are changing lives. Like that's quite literally what you all do every day. And so again, on behalf of myself and Nicole, thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And I gotta give Brandon your flowers too, man. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Nicole, for the invitation. Thank you for this platform. Continue to promote mental health for Black and brown folk, man. So important.
Now I need a shirt from you too. I got my Kiesha shirt. I got the Kiesha
I ain't
shirt.
give you a shirt. I ain't get you a shirt.
I got it.
I got you.
Yeah, look, I need to put my request for a shirt as well. So
got y'all.
Down in Florida.
So
awesome.
Yes. Well, wonderful. We're getting feedback from folks saying thank you all. My favorite thing is to get some body movement and exercise when I'm low.
Yes.
I gotta get better with that.
Yeah, me too.
Same.
Young Bull Society said thank you for this platform and information. So yeah, we want to hear from you all, the viewers. If y'all can, just let us know if this has benefited you in some way. Just put us a heart or a thumbs up or something in the chat. Let us know. Give us a comment. I have definitely benefited from this and have got some great notes and some things that I'm going to add to my toolkit to share as a mental health advocate. So again, thank you both, Kiesha and Archie. I would like to also extend the invitation for you all to be on either my Mindset Monday show or my Wellness Wednesday show, which are 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, I would love to come back for sure.
Nicole is the hardest working woman in podcasting. It's a show somewhere happening, so y'all definitely gotta connect.
Right. So we got 6 minutes because my next show is at 8:30. So
wow.
Wrap it on
back.
I love it.
Let's roll.
I love it.
No, appreciate you all.
Thank you guys
so much.
Sure. All right, Brandon, anything you want to say in closing?
Again, the more we can have these kind of conversations, this hour went by crazy fast. The more we can do around this conversation, the more we can talk about it, the more we can get out resources, the more we can just do the practical things, I think is what I want to say too. Like, love on our kids, like give them a chance to express themselves, like go crazy with the love and affection, like tell them you're proud of them every day, tell them you love them every day, like give them, like build up those affirmations for our kids. Like, you know, it does help, it does work. There's so much around them in the world that tells them that they're not good enough, they're not valuable, their lives literally do not matter, you know, in some places. And we want to make sure that they feel that if anywhere within our own community. And just check into the rest of the week. I got videos going up every day for the rest of the week at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Infographics coming out when I can get them out at some point during the day. And, you know, I just want people to tap in and get connected to everything that we have going on. And Nicole, can't thank you enough, my friend, for allowing us to collaborate on this.
My pleasure. So I also want to give space for if Archie, Kiesha, you all have anything coming up that, you know, the community needs to
Yeah.
be aware of or can support, if you'll let us know at this time.
Yes, so to close out Suicide Awareness Month as well as Black Youth Suicide Prevention Week, we have a few events, remaining virtual events going on this week. So this upcoming Wednesday from 12:30 to 1, we have our Lunchbox Chat series. It is on Zoom. The information is also on our Instagram page. The topic for this Wednesday is coping, grief, and loss. And then on Thursday evening at 6 p.m., we're hosting a QPR suicide prevention certification session, also on Zoom. So it'll be from 6 to 7:30.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. So again, you can connect with Kiesha at Caleb's Kids on IG, Twitter, and Facebook. All right, Archie, anything going on?
Then on my end, we are, as far as events, no major events. We actually just got finished representing PDLB at Kid Cudi's Moonman's Landing Festival that took place here in Cleveland last weekend, which was an amazing experience. And so we're actually about to launch next month our second Cope Dealer program with a wraparound services center here in Cleveland. If you want to learn more about our organization, the things that we do, or if you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can head over to www.pdlb.org.
Okay. pdlb.org. Got it.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Follow all these folks, y'all. Follow them and support. We got to support one another. So
Absolutely. And so we by that time, we were up there before you put us out. So
follow Brandon on Black Mental Wellness Lounge. Actually, that's how I connected with him, was on IG. And so I reached out in his DM and he responded, and we've been rolling ever since. So
rolling ever since. And so so definitely follow us there, get the rest of the information. Nicole, plug in next show. Who's your guest?
Yes, Ozzy Daniel. He's a clinician out of Virginia Beach. And we are going to be talking about the audacity of oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'll go in it. See, I messed up the plug just then. Look, the audacity of. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. I got too much on my mind.
Hope.
Adaptation. Adaptation. And I got Michael Love on Wednesday. And Michael actually is on the live right now. And he is in Jacksonville. But he was formerly a police officer. So we're going to be talking about Black police officers and double identity. Black police officer and double identity. So it's
heavy.
Yeah. The inspiration part of it is our conversation, but the movie Black and Blue, I don't know if any of you saw that movie about the Black female officer who didn't quite fit in with the force, and she didn't quite fit in with the Black community. So just kind of that intersectionality there. So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate it. Thanks, Janel. Thanks for jumping on and sharing your wisdom. Thanks, Kiesha. Thanks, Archie. I appreciate you all. And thank you, Nicole. And stay tuned for the rest of the week.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
You too.